Hi, everybody. It's Aamina. I just wanted to introduce my next guest to you. Her name is Lala Tagiyeva. She is a licensed therapist, board certified, and she's got her master's in social work from USC. She has over 20 years of psychotherapy experience, and she's talked to individuals and couples and also done long-term therapy for a variety of issues like depression, anxiety, chronic stress, among many others. So she has a lot of really great experience, and I had a wonderful conversation with her. So I'd love for you to be able to listen. Thank you so much, Lala, for being here with me
Absolutely.
today.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
No problem. So I know we talked about a little bit about, people feeling overwhelmed, people are feeling, they don't have their space anymore, privacy is an issue, all kinds of little things. I want to see what you can kind of tell us from your side, what you're seeing, and any advice you can give to our community. I'm sure that'd be so helpful.
Absolutely. So I think there's a couple of things that are important to mention off the bat in terms of what's going on with this stressor that we've got unraveling. And one of the things that is important to mention is the uncertainty of the situation. We as human beings do not like uncertainty. We spend a lot of time and resources on trying to predict the future. We study the stock markets, economic trends, weather changes, climate change and whatnot, all in effort to establish some kind of predictability for ourselves. The reason why we do that is because we're trying to maintain a status quo. Why is status quo important? It's important because it allows us to retain a sense of control. And what has happened with COVID-19 is that sense of status quo has been really shaken by this abrupt and drastic change. And this kind of change is really requiring of all of us to think about our lives in a very different way. When you're managing your life on autopilot, the beauty of autopilot is there's a natural flow to life. You got up in the morning, you got your kids ready, you put everyone in the car, you drop them off at school, you went to work, there's meetings, and certain things are just kind of unfolding, they're preset. And what it absolves you of is this constant thought of how things are going to go from A to B and on and on. And all of that is out the door right now because all of us are having to exert a lot more energy in trying to figure out how to manage all of these different steps and think through all of the details. That is actually tremendously mentally exhausting. Let's say you were preparing dinner and you ran out of a particular ingredient. So then you're facing a question of, can I manage without this ingredient? Do I need to put together a list to run out there and buy the other 30 things that I had on my list? And do I have, mask, gloves, all that stuff to protect myself? Will I have to be waiting in line in order to get into the store? How is that going to impact my schedule going forward? Once I get home, do I disinfect everything? All of that requires extra mental energy. When you're functioning on autopilot, even though life can seem really intense, it allows for certain efficiency because it frees you up not to think through all of these multiple steps, and you can actually focus on things that are at hand. We're in a different situation now where we haven't really established a new normal. And I think that what a lot of us are trying to do is basically we're trying to live in two normals. The normal that was before COVID and what's happening with COVID. And I think that can be particularly overwhelming and exhausting. What I've been hearing a lot from people is that it's almost like we're split into these two different camps. One is individuals that are either furloughed or they're in the gig economy and they really are sitting there and they're waiting for things to change. And then there are those that are able to transition their work home, but are also overwhelmed by the amount of things that they have to take care of at home, whether they're moving their office home, having to schedule meetings, and then take care of children or loved ones or elderly at home. So those individuals will have a hard time joining other people for a happy hour on Zoom or doing car parades for someone's birthday. They just don't have the mental capacity to be able to do all of those things. And obviously then we've got the things, in between, individuals that are overwhelmed at home and individuals that are really sitting on the edge of their seat trying to figure out how to come up with a new hobby or a way to occupy themselves in order to somehow sail through this crisis. And I think that the crisis itself, I think that it's turning into something that's more chronic, and that's a whole other ball game to manage. when you're powering through a crisis that's temporary, our biology is built in a way that allows us to push through these things and then recover and move on. With a chronic stressor, it's a completely different story, and your body has to constantly maintain you at that level of being concerned and aware and constantly problem solving, and that can really wear on you. And this particular crisis, I think, brings out two very primal fears. Why primal? Because they're all oriented towards survival and well-being. One fear is the obvious one of not wanting to get sick or worrying about a loved one being sick. And the other fear is economic. What's going to be the economic fallout of this situation? Both of these fears are really threatening to our well-being and our survival. And whether we're trying to push them somewhere in the back of our minds or not, they're still doing their number on us. And that can be another added element in terms of just the difficulty of coping and processing all of your thoughts and all of your feelings.
Wow, that's amazing and like a lot of information. And it kind of validates what people are feeling right now. I think a lot of people, and I've noticed this too, they're concerned like, I'm feeling this. Is it normal for me to feel this way? Or am I exaggerating or,
Mm-hmm.
undersimplifying or what have you? So it's really great to know that, you've kind of validated a lot of people's feelings, I would say. And in that regard, how do you think would be a great way to manage, being overwhelmed and this feeling of, of being overwhelmed or, in this, that we can't control anything and it turning chronic? Any suggestions?
Absolutely. Yeah, these are very good questions, and obviously, individual situations will vary. So, in some sense, just a quick word of caution, we're providing sort of generalizations in terms of how to cope. But I think we can throw some things out there that will be good and interesting for our viewers to be aware of. Um, it's basically being aware of the fact that some of your old coping strategies that are not necessarily helpful, they will come out of the shadows. So let's say I'm doing some, really good work with a client in therapy and they're learning all these wonderful tools. And then all of a sudden COVID-19 shows up, and what I'm watching is that they are regressing to their previously used coping methods. So for example, individuals that are prone to overachieving, which is a mechanism that's driven by anxiety, guess what's going to happen? It's going to skyrocket, because now they're in the place going, oh my God, there's a shortage of resources. I've got to try extra hard to ensure well-being of myself and my family. So they will actually find themselves just running themselves into the ground with being overworked. So it goes back to setting reasonable expectations for ourselves. So individuals that are working from home will find themselves being overwhelmed with working from home and then trying to take care of all these other projects, because supposedly now they're at home and they have all this extra time. And those might not be reasonable expectations. So look at the way that you're prioritizing your time. Be okay with the fact that certain things you're going to have to let go of that are not high on your priority list. And certain items and certain projects and whatnot will have to be split into manageable tasks. You don't have to do it all at once. And I think that there's also an extra element of us being cooped up at home, whether you're alone, then that's a really difficult thing to manage, because you don't have people around you and you don't have the necessary contact and support and connection. So figure out a way for you to connect with other people by phone or by Zoom. I know it's not the same thing, but it's close enough where you can still relate to other people. Individuals that are at home with their families are also experiencing difficulties, because we're constantly around each other, we're cooped up together, we're in each other's space, and there's needs and wants and all these things that are happening. And I think that it's difficult, or we feel guilty about setting some time for ourselves or setting boundaries and saying, this couch is off limits to anyone else. I'm just going to have to, watch my program. Let me have a moment. So it's asking for what we need. And I think it's also allowing for our loved ones to have some space to themselves. The other day I was walking by and I heard that my husband was exercising in the other room. And I totally felt like I should come in and like cheer him on. But then I saw that the door was closed, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe he needs a space and he doesn't want me around when he's huffing and puffing. So that's fine. And I let that be. So it's just being mindful of the fact that even though we're constantly around each other, people around us need their space.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that wholeheartedly.
Mm-hmm. And if exercise and nutrition was something that you were focusing on before, definitely continue to do that. I think it's easy to just kind of see this something that is just out of the ordinary, and we're not going to gyms and we're not maybe exercising as much, but doing things that you can at home of just simple stretching and whatnot. And then being able to pace yourself throughout the day. For example, I'm used to structuring my practice in a way where I'm seeing patients back to back all day. And with Zoom, I've realized that, well, it's a little bit more exhausting. So I am learning to say, no, 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 you cannot schedule people back to back. You're going to have to create some breaks in between when you can get up and walk around and stretch or get a glass of water or, talk to your kid, whatever it is, so that there's a little bit more of structured breaks. I know it sounds artificial, especially for those people that are prone to overachieving or are operating on this crazy anxiety to just get it all done. You're going to have to make yourself, including setting up an alarm to make sure that you're taking those breaks.
I I hear you, and I totally agree with you on that. I think I found myself kind of in a very similar situation where I come home from work, pick up the kids, go home, and then you're doing the mom and wife duties and trying to clean the house and all that kind of stuff. And I was trying to get it all done every day by a certain time. And then I realized, you know what, this is just not working. It's going to drive me crazy. So I'm splitting it all up. That one day I'll focus on one part, one day I'll focus on something else. That way I was able to really connect more with my kids and my husband and be like, hey, you know what, why don't we sit outside today? Why don't we go for a walk instead of me, folding all the laundry? Take that time and just kind of, focus it somewhere else. And it really helped to rejuvenate some of that energy, I think I could say, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and it definitely decreased my anxiety, I would say, for sure. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, for sure.
It's basically what you're talking about is being able to balance things that you must do with self-care. And I think that's absolutely key here. And that's what I meant earlier about prioritizing. Your work projects are a priority, and cleaning your house might not be a priority, or washing your chandelier is not going to be a priority, even though you might want to do that. So those things are going to be on hold. And I think it's also accepting the fact that certain tasks are just going to take longer, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's something that we all need to hear, that we can't do it all, and that's okay. What we're doing is good. And I think that's a great, great message. Lala, thank you so much. Do you have any other comments or anything else you can kind of, leave our viewers with and our community to help kind of give them more of a positive spin or way to look at what's going on?
I just want to emphasize the self-care component. I think that more than ever before, that's really, really important. It's one thing that is very easy to just kind of have it fall by the wayside. What I've been focusing a lot with my clients is seeing this. It's a challenging time, there's no question about it. But I think that it's important to reframe some of these concepts from, oh my God, what a horrible situation, we're in the middle of the plague, into what is it actually challenging me to do? And I think that resilience is very, very important, and self-reliance is very important. And more than ever before, we're having to do those things and having to think about those things. Resilience is not something that we build just by sort of having an easy life. Resilience is something that we build by surviving challenges. So this is definitely a challenging situation. And I'd like to think that we as a community, as a worldwide community, will bounce back from this more resilient and more with a sense of just being able to hold our own.
That's great. Thank you so much for all the
Absolutely.
information.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for spending some time with us, Lala, today. And I look forward to having more conversations with you. Please subscribe to us. Please comment below. Please like our page and share, because I'm sure this information is going to help a lot of people. Thank you so much to our viewers. Comment below and let us know if there's anything else that you're feeling or that you want to address. And Lala and I can maybe come back on and talk through some more issues. Thank you,
Absolutely.
everyone. Have a great day, and thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you.